I'm David Boles, and this is Boles.tv, BOLES.television.tv. Thank you so much for being here today. If you have any questions or concerns, hey, come and join our Discord server. I'll put the link in chat right now. We have links, we have conversation, we have wonderful things going on. We invite you to come and spend your time with us. And just checking my YouTube stream, we are still alive, but maybe not living. Hey, it's Friday, and you're a diehard Husker fan. What are you going to do? Well, you wake up early tomorrow, you watch this pregame show, and then the game is at 12, and then everything's going to be very sad. Maybe. So we have talked a lot on this stream about social status, social standing, society, the human condition, and eugenics. It's a really interesting topic for me. Not just because I have a lot of disabled friends or because my wife is deaf, but yeah, that too. But also this whole idea of purification of people. And there is a certain form of eugenics that is much more subtle that I'll discuss right now before we get into the depths of our eugenics conversation, because it's always popping up now in the online newspapers, conservative newspapers, the Catholic Church, very against eugenics. And it's really interesting that that's their philosophy. That everyone should reproduce, everyone should have a chance at life. Because that is not always how they behave religiously, economically, or socially. When it comes to setting precedent, and it comes to setting expectation. But a more subtle form of what I will call eugenics, natural selection, discrimination by purpose and design, is that between the rich and the poor. Now, I grew up very middle class, lower middle class, in the Midwest, but I happened to have a lot of friends who were born extremely wealthy, which served me well when I moved to Washington, D.C. and then New York City, because when you go to an elite school or you live in a certain neighborhood, there are people with money, and they live very differently from the rest of us. When I first moved to New York, someone told me the best way to recognize if someone was born into money or not is, do they move their elbows when they speak and when they walk and when they do things? And I thought that was very interesting. And I'm not saying it's true or not, but after that was mentioned to me and I started looking at the social strata of people and wealth, there's something to be said. Meaning that people who work with their hands, people who are blue collar, they move their elbows. Whereas people who are born into society keep their elbows locked at their sides, and they just speak and work like this. They don't have to lift things. They don't have to push things that raise your elbows. Just when they're walking down the street, when they're looking at a piece of paper, they pick up the thing from the table like this. They don't pick it up like this. Very interesting. So that was the clue that my friend gave me. Came from wealth. As a little signpost where you can see, you can read people before you actually meet them. Anyway, so you're in the Midwest, you're growing up poor. Most of your friends you go to school with are poor. And then, because, as I've discussed in my Human Being podcast, when you get involved in theater, especially community theater, to community theaters that are there to, pay people and to put on great shows are not usually found in the poor sections of a city. They are found and built in the wealthier areas of town because those are the people who want to be in the show, and those are the people who want to pay to have a season ticket. So if you're a lower middle class kid like me and you want to be in a show at the Playhouse, you have to drive 30 minutes one way and 30 minutes back. Whereas most of the other people who are in the show are driving 5 minutes to get to rehearsal and 5 minutes to get back home. That is a very subtle form of what I'm calling for this conversation, economic eugenics. Now, if you don't have a way to get to rehearsal every night of the week for 6 weeks, whatever, there and back in an hour in a car, you're not going to be in a show. You're not going to meet other people. You're not going to have rich friends, even though you are not rich. So that's an interesting way of separation through something that you think is inclusory, like the arts and drama, when it's really not. It's all a bit of a scam. So in that experience of hanging out with the rich kids, and they sort of accept you because maybe you have talent or you're in the show together, or they're lonely, they want to have friends. The parents don't really know who you are, where you're from, but you wouldn't be in the show if you didn't have some kind of money to be here. It's a very interesting, unspoken dynamic that is also sort of damning in conclusion. So, people in the Midwest, theater people, love to have parties. Now, it's not true, really, as I discovered, in New York City. In New York City, when you do something, you go, you do it, and you go home. You don't really hang out afterwards. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? People always have somewhere to go. And when rehearsal's done, they're going home. That was a shock to me. So, you're in the Midwest, growing up, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Oh, we'll go to Patty's house for a party. Okay, so we'll go to Patty's house. And it's not alcohol or anything like that. It's just a very big, beautiful mansion with delicious catered meals, food, finger food for kids. And you walk in there and you learn very quickly to play it cool. You don't walk into a rich person's house and go, oh my God, you have a chandelier. You have sterling silver. You have 5 cars. Because you do that, then you're looked at like you're the help. Then you're looked at like this is not normal for you. So you have to very quickly learn to assimilate, eugenically speaking, and realize I don't fit in here. I don't recognize any of these things. These things are much nicer than I have or that any of my friends have, but I got to play it cool. Like this is ordinary. This is to be expected because that's what it is for them. That's the life they lead. So your rich friends, all their cars and all their chandeliers, that's ordinary to them. That is the regular of it. And it works in reverse. Because sometimes your rich friends, because you live 30 minutes away, will give you a ride home. Okay. Now, you very quickly learn to say, no, thank you, I'll wait. Or I'll walk home if I have to. Because you will never recover from that discovery. The discovery being this. Your rich friend gets into their Porsche, drives you home, and then the further away you get from the community playhouse, the environment changes, the houses become smaller, and your rich friend pulls into your driveway, and the first thing they say is, boy, your house is small. And right then, you know, the secret is out. Now they know. Now they, I'm sure, quickly learn to judge that small house, but then to eventually keep it to themselves. Be quiet about it. Don't say, oh, you have such a small house. You're poor. You don't have a 5-car garage. You don't have any garage. So that's a painful lesson when you see in the eyes of your rich friend realizing you are not one of them. And then you may be in the play together, but you don't belong together. So moving on from that idea, not into complete and total eugenics yet, but the social status eugenics that you find perhaps when you attend a university. And even though it's a university, a public school, there are rich kids who don't want to go far away from home, who don't want to go to New York to go to school. They're just going to stay home and have their parents pay for it, and they will live the rich life, which is okay. But be very careful, because there is a certain unspoken, unknown thing that, let's say, between a rich female and not necessarily me, but someone like me from a middle class, lower class family who might be on scholarship while they are not. They have influence and power in the university because their parents are part of the system and donate money. And you very quickly learn that, stereotypically, the rich girl is very happy to entertain you as a friend, as a performing monkey, not as a confidant, but we'll have a conversation with you, hang out with you, do things with you that are on a surface level. But when it comes to dating, marriage, child having, there is great pressure to not marry below your social status. You want to marry someone who is at your status, or better, up. You marry up, you don't marry down. Oh, I'm marrying for love. That's what middle class people say. That's not what rich people say, in my limited experience. So while you may have a wonderful friendship with someone who may be of money and of substance, when it comes down to doing the dirty nails of crafting a relationship, there will always be that thing right there. And usually it's the lack of a trust fund. Trust fund babies are very identifiable. They have a certain thing about them. They don't really have to want or fight or need anything in their lives because they're taken care of. From the cradle, rock the cradle. And the rest of us have to fight and scrape and battle for every little thing we have. And that isn't of their world. It isn't of their philosophy of living, to struggle or to wonder about where your next paycheck or meal will come from. So that is a hard thing for young people to get through their minds, that people of status, people of money are happy to be your friend, to chat with you, maybe go to a movie. But as far as marriage and a deep relationship, it's not done, is the phrase. And usually it's not the kid. The kid perhaps wants something there of substance and of value because the kid is seeing you as a person. It's the parents. Oh, no. Not that. We don't do that. Oh, we don't go to that kind of play. We go to the ballet, not the community theater. So you have to be very wary of what you get into, because if you're not of a certain breed, of a certain stock, of a certain social status, then you will not procreate with someone who has money. And there are lots of examples. I have a very good friend who was a theater actor and very successful, moved to the East Coast, worked at a community theater there, and married a very rich girl. And now his whole life has changed. So that does happen. But generally speaking, you have to be very careful where you step if you are not of money, because you will be very quickly and roundly put in your place. And there are kids at school in New York who talk, look, I'm on scholarship. I have no money. I'm here because the university thinks I'm geographically important. And that's what I was always told. Oh, you're from Nebraska. Oh, these schools are going to love having you come because you're from the Midwest. You're not from New York. And these kids talk to you and they say, look, I have a group of friends. I'm from a poor family. They're all rich. They say, hey, let's go to Paris tomorrow. And it's $16,000 there and back. And, we'll fly out on Friday night and we'll come back Monday morning. Let's go. And they all go. And then they turn to that poor kid and they say, why aren't you packing? Where's your passport? I don't have a passport. What, you don't have a passport? How do you travel? Well, I don't really travel because I don't have any money. What do you mean you don't have any money? You're at NYU. Well, I'm on scholarship. What? Your parents are paying for your school? No. Or are you coming to Paris with us? No, I don't have any. I can't even buy anything to eat. Oh. And very slowly, you find yourself outside of the circle. Before you were in the circle because they thought you were one of them. And then the trip to Paris reveals you, exposes you. You live in a really small house. A little bit crushed. And a little bit wounded by these attacks that people take against you because of who you are and what you like to believe. So this is my introduction to our next section to talk about traditional eugenics. And I just shared my unofficial thoughts and experiences about social eugenics and social status that play a very dear and important part of our lives. And before we start this next section, I'm going to take a very brief blood pressure break. Returning in just a moment.